announcement by Malaysia's Prime Minister.
Flight MH370 ended in the southern Indian Ocean.
The view from space, that's where the information's coming from, not the space station, which took these images of the area a few months ago, but from a single satellite. An Inmarsat satellite, a geostationary one 36,000 kilometers up. Somehow, for several hours, it recorded a type of handshake from MH370, and it knows it's that plane, apparently, because every handshake is unique. Based on the angle of the signal and the distance from the Earth, Inmarsat believe the plane must have traveled along one of two specific lines, so evident on a map, so horrifyingly vast and vague back on Earth. You're always tricking us, lying to us, yell the families. Can you blame them for thinking that?
Malaysia says the groundbreaking satellite analysis led to the conclusion that Flight 370 went down in the southern Indian Ocean. Joining us now is Chris McLaughlin. He's Senior Vice President of the British satellite company Inmarsat. Chris, thanks very much for joining us. So tell us, are you 100% convinced this plane, this 777, went down in the southern Indian Ocean based on your satellite analysis?
Yes, Wolf. We have looked at a number of other Malaysian Airlines 777s to look at the overall model and the best path fit with the pings that we got off the aircraft go to the southern route.
The search, with 3 ships at sea for more than 2 years, has been methodical and high-tech. First, a sonar pass to map the overall shape of the seabed.
The main water depth is sort of 4,000 metres, and there's mountains, volcanoes, trenches, there's everything.
Once the general seabed has been mapped, the crew deploy a machine hooked onto the end of a very long cable to take a closer look. Everybody on board calls this the fish. When the weather allows, the crew winches it out and tows it between 7 and 9 kilometres behind this vessel and between 3 and 4 kilometres down. The search area where experts believe the plane crashed is 120,000 square kilometres of open ocean. That's an area bigger than Portugal. With almost all of that now complete and no sign of the missing plane, there is inevitably a sense of disappointment, one that would grow if the search ends without the aircraft found.
For the last 2 years, everyone's thought today's going to be the day that we'll turn up and we're going to find it. It'll be tough, I think, for the guys if we don't find it. Yeah, I think it'll be really tough on them.
It had been expected, but it was still a huge blow to the families of passengers lost on board Malaysian Airlines MH370 when the announcement was made.
Today, in our tripartite meeting, and in the absence of credible new evidence, Australia, China and Malaysia have collectively decided to suspend the search upon the completion of the 120,000 square kilometer search area.
The 3 countries have shared in a search lasting almost 2.5 years since the plane disappeared from radar screens whilst en route to Beijing from Kuala Lumpur with 239 passengers and crew on board. But now 90% of the search area in the western Indian Ocean has been examined with no clues emerging. A Chinese ship with sophisticated underwater sonar will continue helping as the remaining area of seabed is explored. But before the end of the year, unless there's a breakthrough, the search will end. It may be that we never find out what happened to MH370. The families say the authorities must keep looking for the missing plane. But the search team says reluctantly it's now time to draw a line.
I think the commercial data, as I mentioned, I have to repeat again, it was costing starting from 121, but at 130 it disappears altogether from our radar. This is secondary radar. And nothing at all.
And not even what about the military radar? Sorry. Thank you. The last plot, after several intermittent primary plot. There's a last plot that happened at 0215, flight level 295, 200 miles northwest of Penang. Again, we are corroborating this, okay? Corroborating this. 0215. I'm not saying this is MH370, okay? It is. We are still corroborating this. We are still working with the experts.
So what are you saying it was?
Sorry?
You don't know what it was?
No.
So what do you see on?
It's a plot. It's a plot. Unidentified plot.
The difference between secondary radar and primary radar. Secondary radar is talking to the aircraft whereas transponder, and it gives you the aircraft, the airline, the aircraft type, how high it flies, how fast it flies, and the track and so forth. But on the primary radar, it just gives a plot. It doesn't give the identification of an aircraft.
I think that answers a lot of. Actually, what we have done is look into the recording on the radar that we have, and we realized that there is a possibility. There is a possibility the aircraft did make a turn back.
When we look at the recording, it proves that there is a possibility that this aircraft made a turn back. But we are not sure whether it is the same aircraft, but it happens to be in the same area that signal that comes out on the radar screen that makes a turn back.
The military radar, the primary radar, has some capability. It tracked an aircraft which did a turn back, but they were not exactly sure whether it was MH370. What they were sure of was that the aircraft was not deemed to be hostile. It tracked an aircraft. It tracked an aircraft.
No planes were sent up on the night to investigate?
No, simply because it was deemed not to be hostile.
Don't you find that troubling that a civil aircraft can turn back, fly across the country, and nobody thinks to go up and have a look? Because one of two things, I understand the threat level, and I understand this. Either the plane's in trouble and needs help, or it's nefarious and you really want to know what somebody's going up there to do. So as Prime Minister, don't you find that troubling?
You see, I'm coming back to my earlier statement, is that they were not sure whether it was MH370.
Even more reason to go up and have a look.
They were not sure. But it behaved like a commercial airline. It behaved like a commercial airline.
Bound for Beijing, the flight's last known position was in an airspace midway between Malaysia and Vietnam. Malaysia Air Chief said that an aircraft that could have been the missing plane was detected by military radar. Roughly 320 kilometers northwest of Penang in Malaysia.
When some strange things started to happen.
Investigative reporter and author Leslie Kane has written extensively on the UFO phenomena.
We now know that at 1:28 a.m., Thai radar saw an unidentified blip along an unexpected westward track, but did nothing about it. It took 11 days for that news to emerge. Around the same time of morning, Vietnamese civil aviation see what they think was MH370 heading westward. Twice they contact the Malaysians. It takes days to hear anything back. 2:15 a.m., Malaysian military radar spots an unidentified blip here at Pulau Perak in the Strait of Malacca. Again, this took days to learn.
UFOs are not picked up on radar, but in this situation they were.
So when it comes to unusual phenomena in the sky, it makes sense that airline pilots are often the people who see these things.
And yet, most pilots do not report these incidents, fearful of being ridiculed and losing their jobs.
Commercial and military pilots are extremely reluctant to make a UFO report.
Nick Pope was an official UFO investigator for the UK Ministry of Defence.
This is not career enhancing, quite the opposite. It can kill careers.
The Japan Airlines Flight 1628 incident is the best documented and most baffling encounter between a commercial airliner and a UFO on record. Henley contacts Elmendorf Base to confirm the pilot's fears.
Okay, and is he following him?
It looks like he is, yes.
The unidentified flying object appears to be chasing the 747.
Japan Air 1628?
Sir, the military radar advises they do have a
Primary target and trail of you at this time?
The question now, is the crew of Japan Airlines 1628 in danger? With up to 13,000 aircraft flying at any given moment, other unexplained sightings are inevitable. The government declassified top-secret documents that investigated UFO encounters like this one and concluded they pose a real risk to commercial aviation. It is called Project Condign, a 3-year, 400-page report.
For many years, we never acknowledged to the public that there was any military intelligence interest in UFOs at all. Clearly, as these documents show, there was.
Nick Pope worked for the Ministry of Defense in the 1990s, conducting investigations into UFO incidents. The report remained classified until 2006, and its findings were explosive. Rather than call the objects UFOs, the report gives them a new, less controversial title: UAPs.
One was that UAP, as we called it, unidentified aerial phenomena, are real.
The report does not say UAPs are necessarily extraterrestrial. Some could be natural phenomena, but it also does not dismiss the possibility that they are not from this planet.
Project Condign also states that there are serious flight safety implications, talks about the dangers of pilots getting too close to these things.
November 1986. Soaring through dark false skies above Alaska is Japan Airlines Flight 1628, a 747 cargo plane en route from Paris to Tokyo with a scheduled stop in Anchorage. At the controls is Captain Kenju Terauchi, also in the cockpit, a first officer and flight engineer. They are cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet when suddenly Captain Terauchi notices unusual lights dead ahead.
They were flying over the Fairbanks area around 5:15 in the afternoon. At first, Captain Terauchi looked out and saw some lights in the distance, and the co-pilot and the engineer saw them as well. He wasn't sure what they were, so he radioed in to ask whether there was any traffic in the area that he should know about.
Japan Air 1628.
Captain Terauchi contacts Anchorage Air Traffic Controller, Carl Henley.
Do you have any traffic?
Do you have any traffic? It's a question no air traffic controller wants to hear.
And when a controller hears these magic words, "you have traffic for me," usually a cold sweat breaks out because it means he's missed something.
In 1986, John Callahan was the Federal Aviation Administration's Division Chief of Accidents and Investigations.
Pilot's asking, is there somebody out here in front of me that I should know about or you know about? He's in positive airspace, which means nobody else can fly unless air traffic approves it.
This is the actual Anchorage Air Traffic Control recording that documents the extraordinary events of the night.
Anchorage Center, Japan Air 1628.
The controller checks the scope real fast. He sees no traffic and he says negative.
Carl Henley can see the JAL 1628 transponder signal on his radar screen, but sees no other craft.
The transponder is just another radio that the aircraft sends out a signal. It says, this is me and this is where I am.
Japan Air 1628. Roger, and we sight 2 traffic. Front of us. 1 mile south.
The JAL pilot and his crew now see 2 objects near their plane, only a mile out and on a collision course.
The next thing the controller says, can you see any markings on it?
Sir, if you're able to identify the type of aircraft and...
Can you tell me if it's military, if it's civilian? Can you see any numbers on it? Anything at all to identify it?
Captain Terauchi cannot identify the aircraft, but sees navigation and strobe lights in the distance.
When a pilot encounters the unknown, and if that unknown presents a threat to that pilot, seconds count.
Dr. Todd Curtis was an aviation safety engineer for Boeing.
If that pilot reacts in a way that puts that aircraft in danger, it's a concern to all of us.
Terauchi reports an unidentified aircraft dangerously close to his 747, but still, Henley cannot see them on his radar. He contacts the military controllers at nearby Elmendorf Air Force Base.
Air traffic control in Anchorage asked the people at the military base.
Verify that you do not have any military aircraft in the area.
Do you have anything up there? Could this be some kind of unusual experimental craft of yours or something?
That is affirmed. We do not have anybody up there right now.
Air Traffic Control Anchorage asks them to see if the objects appear on their more sensitive radar scope.
Yeah, could you look approximately 40 miles south of Fort Yukon?
Elmendorf radar has JAL 1628 on their scope. And then, they pick up another object.
It looks like I'm getting a primary return.
The military controller sees a second signal, but can't confirm it's another aircraft.
I don't know if it's erroneous.
Anchorage ATC now adjusts their radar to a more sensitive setting. Suddenly, Henley can see an object flying behind the 747s.
Japan Air 1628 Heavy.
I'm picking up a hit on the radar, approximately 5 miles in trail, your 6 o'clock position. Do you concur?
Negative, 11 o'clock, 8 mile.
It's a total mystery. Captain Terauchi reports the UFO is in front of his airplane, not behind it, as the ATC reports. Is there more than one object near the 747? Or is it one object moving at incredible speed? As Captain Terauchi and his first officer consider their next move, an intense light suddenly bursts right in front of them.
The light was really brilliant, and they described it as having filled the cockpit. And in fact, he described being able to feel the heat on his face, literally feel the heat physically from these objects.
In Captain Terauchi's personal statement, he claims the bright light fades and drops off to the left of the 747, leaving behind a pale, white light. But the Anchorage radar still shows something not beside, but behind him.
Japan Air 1628 Heavy. Sir, does your traffic appear to be staying with you?
Terauchi now looks to his left and sees something that is unlike any flying object he has ever seen. He describes it as the silhouette of a giant, mysterious craft, twice the size of an aircraft carrier.
Japan Air 1628.
The frightened captain requests an altitude change to put some distance between his 747 and the object.
Request 310.
Japan Air 1628 Heavy. Understand, requesting flight level 310.
The pilot goes from 35 down to 31,000, thinking that maybe he can lose this guy in this descent.
Anchorage Air Traffic Control waits for the altitude change and then checks in.
Japan Air 1628 Heavy, do you still have your traffic?
The UFO ends up chasing the 747. It's always within 6 or 8 miles of them.
Then, Anchorage Air Traffic Controller Carl Henley asks Captain Terauchi to do something extraordinary.
I'm going to request that you make a right turn.
Right turn, 360-degree turn.
It is a daring and challenging move.
When a 747 makes a 360-degree turn, it's not like you're turning around in the parking lot. He takes up a lot of airspace making this great big circle.
Henley wants Terauchi to double back on the unknown object to get a better look.
The Japanese pilot's thinking, well, it's all right, because why would this guy following me make a 360?
Right turn, 360.
They initiated the turn, and partway through it, Terauchi was looking out the window and he didn't see the lights anymore. He didn't see the object. So he sort of breathed a sigh of relief and thought maybe it was gone. Kept going around the turn.
It's disappeared.
Continued on his way and then looked again, and lo and behold, there it was.
Henley contacts Elmendorf Base to confirm the pilot's fears.
Okay, and is he following him?
It looks like he is. Yes.
The unidentified flying object appears to be chasing the 747.
Japan Air 1628?
Sir, the military radar advises they do have a primary
Target and trail of you at this time?
The question now, is the crew of Japan Airlines 1628 in danger? Whose crew reported a huge flying object in their airspace in 1986. Captain Kenju Terauchi,
Japan Air 1628.
with 10,000 career flight hours, also witnesses something he cannot explain.
One of the things that stands out about the JAL event is that Captain Terauchi is a former fighter pilot who's trained to observe closely unusual things from the sky.
Sir, if you are able to identify the type of aircraft, can you tell, is it military or civilian?
I think it's
He's having a hard time saying it's something from outer space. It's not one of ours. Never seen it before. It's not a military.
Captain Terauchi and his crew land at Anchorage and are interviewed by the FAA. Within a few weeks, Japanese and American media get wind of the report, and the story becomes hot international news. The FAA is caught off guard and is forced to launch an investigation.
I got a call from the Alaskan ranch that said they had a problem and they didn't know how to handle it. And I asked him what the problem was. He says the halls are full of reporters. He needs to know what to tell them. I said, what are they there for? He says, for the UFO thing. I said, what UFO thing? Oh, he says, I mean, like, who believes in UFOs?
The FAA normally doesn't even investigate cases, but the reason they did here was because there was a lot of outcry from the media, and that's why the case became public.
On January 2nd, 1987, 45 days after the sighting, FAA Area Manager Richard Gordon interviews the flight crew of Japan Air 1628. Now, with the help of an interpreter, Terauchi tells his story with greater detail.
350.
By the time they were interviewed by the FAA, they were shaken, but they were very rational. They gave detailed accounts.
Terauchi says the objects in front of his plane released an energy as bright as a space shuttle liftoff. The lights then split and moved behind the plane.
During those interviews, he drew a series of drawings of what he had seen. We have copies of them here.
Terauchi's drawing shows an immense craft.
He saw something that looked to him like a gigantic walnut-shaped ship of some sort that was suspended in the sky with rotating lights around the perimeter. And he described it as really, really large.
He says, well, it's twice the size of a aircraft carrier.
Then, Terauchi makes a shocking statement in the official debriefing. He refers to the giant object as a mothership. And he says that the two lights seen in front of the plane return to the large ship as if they were reconnaissance craft. sensational revelations from 3 experienced crew members, confirmed radar tracking from civil and military controllers.
I'm picking up a hit on the radar.
The JAL 1628 incident is about to explode.
And he said, don't talk to anybody about this until I get back to you. I got to go see President Reagan.
In January 1987, less than 2 months after the Japan Air incident, Federal Aviation Administration investigator John Callahan is assigned the case.
I requested all the data, the computer data, voice data, the tapes, the video data, everything that they had to be packed up and shipped to the FAA Tech Center in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I wanted it there by 8 o'clock in the morning.
FAA technicians create a virtual reconstruction of the 747's 31-minute encounter.
He took the audio tapes, which was all the conversations between Captain Tarachi and ground control, which had been saved, and the visual shots of the radar scope. He synchronized them together.
Shows the radar as if you were sitting there working traffic yourself, you're looking at the same thing the controller seen at the time. After I had him play it back 3 times up there at the Tech Center, I recorded it on the last time.
Callahan returns to the FAA headquarters in Washington, D.C. with the video cassette of the radar recording.
He showed it to his boss, Admiral Engine, who was at that point the head of the FAA, and he was very taken with it. He sat there and watched it more than once.
And then when it was over, he got up and he said, don't talk to anybody about this until I get back to you. I got to go see President Reagan. Well, when anybody looks at the tape I have, you'll see the same tape that the Admiral seen. You should get the same feeling that he did, that there is something there and it's moving too fast to be a regular airplane.
Callahan wonders if the Alaskan air traffic controllers have picked up some top-secret technology on their radar.
The administrator calls down and says, I set up a briefing for you tomorrow in the round room. You're going to have 3 guys from Reagan's scientific study team. You'll have 3 guys from the CIA, 2 or 3 guys from the FBI.
John Callahan claims he had a meeting with senior U.S. intelligence officers.
So the next morning, I brought up with me all the experts that you could find in the FAA at the time. I didn't want to be embarrassed in not saying I don't know the answer to any question.
Gordon Kennedy, CIA.
John Callahan, FAA. Gentlemen, have a seat around the table.
There were about 20 people in the room, and he was very taken by how interested the CIA was in this data.
So what we've done is we put a video together. The video is going to show exactly what the air traffic controllers saw that evening in real time.
You don't have to know a lot about air traffic, but once we point out that this slash is the airplane and this dot is something that doesn't belong there.
Let's roll the video.
747 shows up here, and then right in front of him is the target, a dot. He's right here. 6 seconds later, this guy ends up behind him. He's going 16 17 miles in the blink of an eye.
This quick movement of the unknown signal is key evidence in the JAL UFO case because a radar sweep is updated every 4 seconds.
Radar works because it sweeps a beam of energy out into the sky. Between 2 sweeps, there's a certain amount of time. And based on the difference in return, they can take those differences and figure out the speed.
So in 4 seconds, you have the guy here, and 4 seconds later, he's here. That's a pretty fast airplane.
He played the tape 2 or 3 times.
Can we see that again, please?
The CIA had never had data like this on a UFO case that they could study, that they could actually get their hands on and study, and they seemed to be very eager to have it.
Ladies and gentlemen.
When he got all done, he's very happy. Oh, good, good. So the CIA guy steps forward and he points at his screen. He says, we were never here.
This never happened.
No record of this meeting exists.
When John Callahan said that he had a meeting with the CIA, it doesn't surprise me that the CIA would neither confirm or deny that that took place.
Everybody in this room is sworn to secrecy.
It's simply not the way they do business.
Boys, pack it up.
I turned to the guy and I said, what do you think it was?
What are we talking? Stealth bomber?
He says, oh no, it was a UFO. He says, it was a UFO.
Well, the Japan airline case is particularly important because we have 31 minutes of radar tape.
The Anchorage air traffic control recording is one of the best pieces of evidence of a UFO encounter on file.
The visual sightings that these three, the pilot and the two crew members, had corresponded to blips on the radar. And often in cases, UFOs are not picked up on radar, but in this situation, they were.
Japan Airlines Captain Kenju Terauchi spoke out. And faced the consequences.
The pilot of JAL 1628 was actually grounded for about a year, simply as a result of speaking out about his UFO sighting.
Captain Terauchi's fate raises a compelling question about our air safety priorities. Project Condign contains 7 cases of UFO near misses that the report cannot explain. One of these happens in January 1995. A 737 is on descent into Manchester Airport when a small, black, wedge-shaped, fast-moving object flies within a few meters of the aircraft. So close, the first officer instinctively ducks. An object nearly grazing the plane's hull poses a huge threat to the safety of the passengers and crew. Investigators conclude that it was not a stealth aircraft or known experimental plane. The top-secret report declares the incident remains unresolved. This shocking conclusion suggests that the skies are not as safe as they seemed, and the UK government kept that fact secret.
The report was secret UK eyes only. Only a handful of copies of the final report of Project Condign were ever produced, and it was on an extremely limited circulation in the Ministry of Defence at a very high level of classification.
These incidents are not limited to British airspace. Another dangerous encounter with an unidentified flying object puts a commercial airliner at risk. This time, in the skies over the United States. May 25th, 1995. American West Flight 564 is a Boeing 757 en route from Tampa, Florida to Las Vegas, Nevada, with a full cabin of passengers. Captain Eugene Tollefson is at cruising altitude when a flight attendant
Hey guys.
sees something unusual.
You seen those lights that are 3 o'clock?
I've been following them for a while.
Against a scattering of clouds, the crew can see strange lights in the distance. Concerned co-pilot John Waller contacts air traffic control near Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, on to 3 o'clock. Getting the strobes out there. Can you tell what it is?
This is the transcript of the actual audio recording between First Officer Waller and Albuquerque Control.
I tell you what, that's some, right now, I don't know what it is right now. Yeah, pretty odd. Hold on, let me see if anybody else knows around here.
He checks with other controllers. None of them has a fix on the unknown object. In the world of commercial aviation, it has the potential to be a dangerous situation.
Cactus 564.
Talking to 3 or 4 guys around here, no one knows what that is. We've never heard about that.
Air traffic control asks the pilot to again confirm that the object is actually there.
It's up in the air.
What's the altitude about?
I don't know, probably right around 30,000 or so. There's a strobe and it's going counterclockwise.
Then, the object is illuminated by a flash of lightning, and Waller sees it is massive.
The length is unbelievable.
The object appears to be large, possibly a jumbo jet, but there are none in the area according to ATC, which is a deadly situation if the unidentified object is another aircraft. When a pilot takes the extraordinary step of declaring a UFO sighting over the radio,
The length is unbelievable.
colleagues on the ground can often be skeptical. At 9:30 p.m., Albuquerque contacts the control tower at Cannon Air Force Base to see if they have any military aircraft in the skies.
Cannon 21.
Cannon, go ahead.
Guy at 39,000 says he sees something at 30,000 that the length is unbelievable and it has a strobe on it.
What does that mean?
I don't know. It's a UFO or something.
No, we haven't seen nothing like that.
Okay, keep your eyes open.
The radar operator at Cannon Air Force Base sees only one signal, America West 564.
Catch 564.
We checked with Cannon and they don't have any weather balloons or anything up there tonight.
Nobody up front knows any idea about that. Can you still see it?
Then, the huge object is suddenly gone.
Negative. It was between the weather and us, and when the lightning, you can see a dark object.
It was pretty eerie looking.
Just what it was remains a mystery. The flight crew of American West 564 is also recorded. But they never went public. Pilot Ray Boyer is one of the few who has dared to speak out.
I started commercially flying in 1989.
In 2007, Boyer pilots Orani Airlines Flight 544 from Southampton to the British island of Alderney. This day, he has 8 passengers aboard the small commuter plane. A senior pilot for 18 years, Boyer has flown this route from the mainland to the Channel Islands thousands of times.
Weather was fine, smooth conditions, overcast around about 12,000 feet, so no direct sunshine, but very clear conditions.
Visibility is so good, Captain Boyer can see his island destination. Then, he spots something else.
Well, the first thing I saw really was effectively a yellow line in the air, which I considered to be dead ahead.
Following protocol, he contacts Jersey Tower, the air traffic control center for the Channel Islands.
Jersey Zones A-Line 544.
Do you have any traffic, when you say how far, but by 12 o'clock level?
On duty is Paul Kelly, the controller responsible for keeping Flight 544's airspace safe.
I'm looking at a piece of airspace which is approximately 100 miles by 100 miles. No known traffic at all in your 12 o'clock. Ahead of Ray's aircraft, there was nothing for 40 miles.
But Captain Boyer still sees something out of the ordinary, dead ahead of his aircraft.
Very flat platform. We're looking at it through binoculars as we speak.
He came straight back to say that he was observing an object.
Roger, I've got a very bright object. Say how far, extremely bright. Yellow, orange object straight ahead.
He started describing the object as a flat cigar-shaped object.
Very bright yellow object looking, well, like a cigar.
There's no indication to me that there was an aircraft in the area.
Baffled and concerned for safety.
Roger, 544, just confirming that all the passengers can see this aircraft.
I noticed that the pilot was turning and talking to a passenger just behind him, and he passed binoculars back. Well, of course, this meant there was something interesting, so I looked out the window, and I saw a very, very bright light. The light didn't vary. It was quite steady. That was quite unusual.
Then, Captain Boyer radios back with stunning news.
Looking through binoculars as I am now.
There's a second one just appeared behind the first one.
About 5 minutes into the sighting, a second object, absolutely identical, appeared beyond it, slightly above to the left. It's fully visible. There it is. There's the other one beyond it, further away. And surely there must be something on radar now.
Finally, Jersey Tower controller Paul Kelly sees something on his radar.
544, Roger. I do have a primary contact now, very faint primary contact. The only indication I had on the radar was this solitary primary contact that seemed to be in the area that Ray was describing.
Yeah, the second one appears to be beyond the first from where I am. It's exactly the same. It's a cylindrical object, very bright yellow, and there's a gap in the light about 2/3 the way along it.
With 2 UFOs ahead, Boyer must decide whether they are a threat to the safety of Flight 544. But Orani Airlines 544's encounter is in broad daylight over the English Channel.
It was really getting a little late for descent, so it had to start going down. Frankly, I was quite glad of that, because these things were now fully visible without the use of any binoculars.
Pilot Ray Boyer lands his small aircraft without coming into contact with the strange object.
I thought this must be reported immediately. Went into our operations department, made an official report.
The information is so immediate and thorough, it remains one of the most compelling UFO encounters ever filed. The report includes drawings of what Boyer says he saw that day,
which was faxed to Jersey controller Paul Kelly.
Paul Kelly is baffled. The mysterious object shows intermittently on his radar, so he contacts other aircraft to see if they see it too.
Charlie 5907 Papa, some previous traffic into Alderney reported seeing some unidentified objects. Do you advise me if you see anything?
Yeah, well, this sounds very strange. Maybe UFOs in the area.
Then, Paul Kelly's radio crackles.
Jersey Blended 832.
Another pilot has seen something.
North-northeast towards Alderney, he could see an object matching the description that Ray had given.
But we've got something about 8 o'clock resembling the description.
Once I'd heard the second pilot apparently confirm the sighting from an opposite direction, that's where it became really quite strange.
This was important for Paul Kelly because this eliminated a lot of explanations of an optical illusion or reflection that would have been possible had there only been one person looking at it.
But Kelly's radar isn't giving him the whole picture.
Paul Kelly's radar had a filter that blocked out slow-moving radar returns.
Kelly re-examines the data without the filter.
What we do see on here with the raw data are 2 definite tracks here of objects, slow moving, but definite contacts.
Now Kelly sees the entire picture. Ray Boyer's aircraft is on the right. The second plane is on the left.
So when the pilot said they saw these objects, they were moving slowly, and the radar didn't pick them up, that doesn't surprise me.
Kelly's radar does not pick up the slow-moving but extremely large signal between the planes.
When Paul Kelly looked at the radar returns, it indicated that there was something out there reflecting radar energy back to that radar.
This only backs up what Ray was describing in terms of the apparent scale. He described at one point the object possibly being Boeing 737 sized.
I've been flying for a long time. I've never seen anything that approaches this. Now I'm convinced that what I saw was what I saw. It was there.
In relation to air safety, Project Condign stated pilots intercepting UFOs should exercise extreme caution.
The Condign report states there is a real threat to commercial aviation.
I've never seen anything like it before or since. Thank goodness. Don't want to.
I've spoken to dozens of civilian and military pilots, many of whom have told me about extraordinary UFO encounters, but they've never spoken out. Bottom line, stay out of the way of these things, whatever they are.
Syracuse, New York, March 12th, 1977. A DC-10 carrying 200 passengers from Boston to San Francisco is flying on autopilot when it suddenly makes an unplanned 15-degree bank to the left. The autopilot is normally controlled by a compass built into the tip of the left wing. But looking out across its span, pilot Neil Daniels and his 2 fellow flight officers quickly realize this situation is hardly normal. They all see a UFO that Daniels later describes to be as bright as a flashbulb that appears to be towing the jet in a direction of its own choosing. The DC-10 and all aboard are at the mercy of an extraterrestrial intelligence. The passengers and flight attendants are unaware of the drama unfolding in the cockpit. For 3 terrifying minutes, the flight crew scrambles to regain control while the aircraft is being dragged toward an unknown fate. But then, just as quickly as it appeared, the UFO releases the jet and disappears into the distance behind. Daniel steers the plane back on course, and the flight continues without further incident. But the encounter will affect the pilot and crew for the rest of their lives. Daniels is warned to remain silent about the incident under threat of dismissal by the airline. He only goes public with the story after his retirement. The other members of the flight crew have refused to comment to this day. Was the Flight 94 encounter an attempted abduction?
Henley contacts Elmendorf Base to confirm the pilot's fears.
Okay, and is he following him?
It looks like he is. Yes.
The unidentified flying object appears to be chasing the 747.
Japan Air 1628.
Sir, the military radar advises they do have a
Primary target and trail of you at this time?
The question now, is the crew of Japan Airlines 1628 in danger?
Bottom line, stay out of the way of these things, whatever they are.